Who among us hasn't thought about hopping aboard a ship and traveling around the world and seeing the rest of the planet? Our guest today is a true Renaissance man who has gone from Greece to South Alabama to a very successful author. We'll meet Ted Pitsios this week on This Alabama Life. Hello and welcome to this week's This Alabama Life, a podcast that features Alabamians who are doing remarkable, interesting, positive, uplifting, and we hope entertaining things. My name is Don Keith, and we're glad you happened upon our little podcast here. If you enjoy what you see, we hope you'll spread the word, that you will subscribe, give a thumbs up, give us 5 stars if you think we deserve it. Let's help spread the word. Did I mention I'm Don Keith? I'm the host. Co-host Andrea Tice is here as well.
Good to be here, Don. Very excited about who we're about to interview. It's going to be very interesting. There's a lot
I guarantee it will be interesting to all of you. I've never met a Renaissance man before, I don't think. I've been accused of being one. I'm not sure. I've never looked it up in the dictionary, but we have a true Renaissance man here. Is there any person out there at some point in your life thought about just climbing on a ship, going to sea, and traveling the world? This young man did it.
Yes, and we're excited to jump into that story right off the bat. So we're going to introduce Ted
Pitsios.
And you just keep jumping in every time I fail to say it right. Ted Pitsios came over to Alabama years and years ago. Tell us about it. Let's just jump right in.
And from your accent, you're not from Alabama, we can tell.
I do declare you from down the road, please. No, I'm not originally from Alabama. I was born in Greece. And now I have gotten to that screwed up stage where I speak Greek also with an accent.
At least Southern Greek, I hope.
So when you go back there, they don't know where exactly you're from, right? They're like, where are you from?
No, the little nephews, the ones that are not aware of what flattery can do to their allowance, I can hear them call each other, come, let's listen to the funny uncle.
I'm sure that's very interesting how Greece has an Alabama Southern accent woven in.
Yeah. Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm the only one in Alabama from my village, from my area.
Well, as a child, you did you watch the ships come and go and say, you know, one day I'm going to climb aboard one of those. I'm going to work as a merchant seaman, and I'm going to see the world at somebody else's expense?
Yes, actually, when I was growing up, the young people, we didn't have movies or theaters, and it was either going to become a captain on a ship or a bus driver. Yes, there was a bus coming through the mountain twice a day. And it was going to all sorts of exotic places, you know, the big city, 5 hours away and so forth, you know, and we thought that was cool, you know. And I went to see because I like to travel, I like to see the world, and it was a slight compromise in my career. I wanted to be a sea captain, you know, but my father would not approve going to a sea captain school because they were all far away from home, and so I settled on becoming an engineer, which, as it turned out, it was a much better choice. I think I'm much more better suited to be an engineer than a captain.
And these were cargo ships that you were going to engineer?
Yes, I sailed on tankers and on freighters and on cruise ships also. I sailed for quite some time for some cruise ship sailing out of Miami. It was,
at some point, though, you decided you wanted to end up in the United States. Why? I've been to Greece. It's a beautiful country.
It really
is. The
is.
weather is great. The history is everywhere. But
food is fantastic.
Yes.
It is. Okay. the character in the book.
We're going to talk about the books because this is one of the other things. He's a writer, too, in addition to being a businessman and a former engineer on freighters and ocean liners.
Yes.
The character in the book aspires to come here and get there. But in my case...
This is not autobiographical.
No, it is not, because I never really planned to live in the United States. I found it... a little bit too rough. I found it lacked finesse or something. And I wanted to see the country and all of that. And that was all of those highfalutin ideas until I met my wife. Way back, if you guys can remember, Hurricane Betsy came roaring through Florida back in 1965, I believe it was. And among the other damage it did, it blew a Greek freighter on the beach in West Palm Beach. I was not on it, but the salvage master who was hired to get her off the beach told the people that bought it that we need to hire some Greek engineers because all the labels on the engine room and all the instruction manuals are in Greek. So I happened to be on vacation in New York, and the agent called the union representative there, and at the time, the snow was about 3 feet high in New York, and the guy says, "Come on down, man, over here. Women are swimming and jumping off the ship." You know, I think I was at the LaGuardia airport before he even hung up. So I got down there, and the plan was to activate the ship's engines and pull ourselves off the beach. And that took a lot of preparatory work. And in the meantime, my wife had the habit of coming to the beach in her yellow polka dot bikini.
Oh, wow.
And after we met, all of those highfalutin ideas of retiring to the south of France or south of England, I was very deep in Dickens and Cronin at the time, and I was going to settle in the south of England and all that. All of that went out the window.
So I take it your wife, was she on vacation in Florida, or is she a native?
No, she's a native Floridian. She is Irish, Scottish, French, American, whatever Americans are made of. But she has a lot of relatives in the Bahamas, and we got married, and we lived in the Bahamas for a couple of years, and then we came to live in West Palm Beach, and then in Fort Lauderdale, and then I ended up, by some turn of events, in the heart of Dixie down.
The Cotton State, Alabama. You know, of course, you're aware that you're not the only Greek to come to Alabama. We had a huge migration of Greeks, Italians, a lot of Mediterranean folks because of the steel industry into the Birmingham area in the late 1800s, which is great for us because we have great restaurants here because of that influence.
Yeah. That's exactly right. They do that. They've done that in other cities and towns, even in the Northeast. It changes everything up to have that Greek and Italian influence.
The good thing about immigration, let's face it.
It is. Our waistlines prove it, right?
Mine certainly does. You know, it's always fascinating to me why somebody chooses the yellow polka dot bikini is one of the best reasons I've heard of settling in this country.
Right. Yeah.
I happened to be in Sydney, Australia on business one time, and I was staying in a bed and breakfast, and the young man was Malaysian who would come in each morning and clean up. And one morning he didn't speak English very well, but he came in while I was still there. He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, United States." "Oh, United States. Very exciting." And he completely lit up. And I thought that spoke volumes to me why so many people do want to come to the country.
Yes.
Although I'll settle for the yellow polka dot bikini.
Well, actually, there was an era where the prestige of this country was ranking very high, and the prosperity and the comfort of living here was legendary. It was my village. The joke was, they tie the dogs with the sausages over there. I mean, that's
the life.
So those were the days. Yes.
Okay, you settle in Florida to start with?
Yes.
Was it business that brought you over to Alabama? How did that all happen? Because you met your wife through a grounded ship. It's
in a hurricane.
It's the
and
setting
because it was
for
snowing in
a romance. Yeah. No. So it seems like this. There's got to be a story behind this as well.
Yes. Well, the quick answer is I'm doing penance, but
okay. Oh wow.
No, it's kind of a long story. We lived in the Bahamas for a couple of years. And then when I came in the States, I thought I would find a suitable job somewhere. So I went to one company that was making turbines, Pratt & Whitney. I thought I had a lot of knowledge on steam turbines on ships and so. And they almost hired me. They liked everything about me, except when it got to checking and saw that I was not a citizen. They said, all our contracts are with the U.S. government, so we can only hire citizens. And then another job, it was my education. It was not quite up to par to them and all of that. So I ended up owning a restaurant like the rest of the things, although I was not planning to perpetuate the tradition or anything. Right. A restaurant came up for sale, and a close relative said they will run it for me if I buy it. And right after we signed the papers, the close relative developed other priorities. And so we ended up, me and my wife, running it for a whole year until I found somebody to buy it. But I did have a restaurant also. And then I was working for a shipyard in Florida who went bankrupt. And at the time, the shipyard in Pascagoula, Mississippi, had gotten the contract to build a lot of destroyers for the Navy, and they were hiring. And that's how I ended up working in Mississippi. And I also had gotten the idea to continue with the education. So I was attending the University of South Alabama. So Mobile was a convenient place to live. So that's how I ended up. Subconsciously, I always thought things would work out where I could chuck it and go back to South Florida. It was different, South Florida versus South Alabama, those days anyway. And but the longer I stayed, the more entrenched I get and everything. So
yes, it's been decades now. So something grew on you.
Well, yes, the children and the grandchildren. That's what grew.
Oh, that's the way it goes always. Yeah.
But in the beginning, it was quite a cultural shock. Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach, they are southern by geographically location,
right,
but they might as well be suburbs of Boston or New York.
Right.
Everybody hustles, they talk with 2 telephones at the time and everything. And over here, it was quite suffocating. You got to get your utilities hooked up or something. One of them days, you'll send somebody over yonder to take a look at them. So it's...
how does that fit into the Greek culture that you came from? Because I always kind of envision in the Mediterranean a little more laid back, but I could be wrong.
I don't know about the laid back part of it.
They just look like they're laid back. They're busy with style.
No, they're tense. They're more tense. Okay. Yeah.
That's what my wife and I thought when the cruise ship stops at some of the islands, the Greek islands, and you get off and they're on the pier, they're chopping up the octopus and all that. We figured that was just for us. That was part of the show. And as soon as the ship left, they went in and watched TV or whatever they did.
Yes, in Europe in general, especially in Mediterranean Europe, 2-hour lunches, are the norm, so to speak.
I could go for that.
I have one image that stuck with me from a Greek island, and I don't remember any of the ones we stopped at. It was 2 or 3. A guy on a bicycle with a tray and a cup of coffee in a tray, rides down the street, stops at a house, knocks on the door, delivers the cup of coffee, gets back on his bike, and rides away.
Gosh, that's style and balance.
That's Europe, man.
Wow.
That's Europe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Ted, when you came to Mobile and you started, you now have a business there,
Yes.
Universal
Marine Services.
Services.
Yes.
Okay, and there's some things that you've made that are exclusive to the area, buoys and other things.
Yes, we built all the buoys the U.S. Coast Guard uses as aids to navigation. They put them in all the ports and everything. So next time you take your yacht out, sink one of them. I could use the business.
No, I'll tell the butler too.
Or the captain.
Yeah. That's great that you got an inroad in that area. That certainly brought in the paycheck. And
it evolved into it didn't come right. Originally, I was working for some other company, and then I got the idea to start my own business, and originally I was doing strictly repairs on ships. Okay. But ships, they have the habit of not breaking down in nice pre-scheduled intervals.
That's true.
So you either end up with lots of work and not enough people to do it, or a lot of people hanging around and not enough work for it. So I tried to diversify some, and I did a lot of work for the shore-based industry. I did a lot of work for paper mills and for the construction industry. If you visit Mobile, the convention center, that big ornamental tower they have, we built it.
Oh, really? I do remember that. We were down there for New Year's.
And all those fancy archways and so forth, we did that.
That's impressive.
And then the contract for the buoys, it was a public contract. It's been advertised. I have done quite a lot of other work for the government, for the branches of Navy and the Army and so forth. So we do anything that's legal and we get paid for.
And so you have this industry within steel and paper and all of that, but then somewhere along the line you decided to branch out and start writing?
Yeah, you lost your mind and started a business. Now you've lost your mind and write books.
It's addictive, actually. The reason it started innocently enough. A family friend who was a professor, God rest his soul, professor at South Alabama, was teaching literature, and at some point he was holding a class of creative writing. Mm-hmm. And being a friend and all that, I thought he wouldn't make too much fun of me if I joined the class. So I joined the class with the intention of improving the vocabulary. And he seemed to like the essays I was writing and all that, and I was hooked after that. So I wrote one book titled The Bellmaker's House. It's about Greeks and doing business.
Somebody said you write what you know. Don't try to write what you don't know. A lot of people do.
That's correct, yes. And then in the second book, it's about somebody that is coerced to go to sea. And then this third book is what this guy that was coerced to go to sea, what he did once he got here.
And that's a new book.
Yes.
Is it just out or coming out?
It's just out. It came out a couple of months ago.
It's called Walking in the Light.
Yes.
And for those of you who wonder if this man can write as well as he talks and tell stories as well as he tells stories in print, a friend of mine, Don Noble, who's professor emeritus of English at the University of Alabama and is on NPR, Alabama Public Radio and Public Television, said, "This is another piece of the Alabama mosaic. Pitsios captures both the culture of the Greek American community in Mobile and the rapidly changing life back in the Greek village." So it's a dual story here.
Yes.
Professor Noble is a good friend, and I trust his judgment.
Yes, he also said he could start some better editing. The commas seem to be running wild.
But it's your book. Put your commas where you want them.
But those are just peripheral details, right? I mean, nothing against the characters and the plot. That all went well, so that's good. How long would it take you to start the process, come up with the idea, and bring out your new book? You're on your third, so did it increase in
the
your speed
no,
or get worse?
It actually it's getting worse. It takes me forever to. Everything I write, I go over it and over it and over it. So it takes me a while.
If someone from Mobile was reading your book, would they say, "Oh, that's me"? Names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yes, on the first book it was, and on the second, it's so generalized that pretty much everybody, oh yeah, that's how my grandfather came here, or that's how my grandfather did it, and all that. So, yeah, it's as you know, in fiction, it's a collage of characters, you know. So
that's the beauty of fiction. You can combine those characters, you can change timelines, you can make minor modifications, but a lot of it's true.
Right, which is what he said, which I appreciate. You know, sometimes you don't have the benefit of knowing all the details from your grandparents of what it took to come over to the U.S., but that helps kind of encapsulate it. Give them a picture and an image of what this was like.
Well, what helped me, I read some of the excerpts, is I don't think people in this country, we were all immigrants at some point. Even Native Americans came across a land bridge centuries ago.
Right.
We were all immigrants, and yet we forget what it was like to leave a home country and to make that voyage and to land in a totally different place. And that's one of the things I get from this, that I like it here, I love it here, I love it there, and I liked it there. But
you see, yes, if you feel you're a big fish in your pond, in your village or your town, and it takes a lot of desperation, a lot of to pick up and go somewhere where you don't speak the language, you don't know anybody. So, I mean, we see every day, we read in the news, we see the people washing up on the beaches, drowned, suffocating into containers and all, trying to get here. And one should wonder, what makes these people? I mean, I have seen, I think it's in this, I have seen little aluminum boats crashed in the rocks, washed up on the rocks. And the guy said, yes, there were 10 people in that thing. I said, man, I wouldn't even send an open letter, as they say in my back home, with that thing, you know. What the amount of desperation makes them, you know. So there are a couple of things that one is desperation. Another is the stories you hear from those who made it here, and those who made it and then go back, they have a tendency to over-embellish them. And so...
Paint a rosy picture, a rosier picture, maybe.
And also, in the older days, another motive, it was the currency difference. Over here, for instance, I knew in my village there was a guy that was a dishwasher over here. And he retired and he got his pension. I think at that time he was getting about $120. And he lived like a lord over there because at $1 at that time, the exchange rate was 40 drachmas to $1. And a labor digging ditches or working from sun up to sundown was not making any more than $1.50 a day. So, man, that guy was. So
I think we see a lot of examples of that even now, where people will come to this country and they'll work. They're illegal, but they still manage to find work. They work 7 days a week, sun up to sundown. They buy a truck, but they live 20 in a house trailer somewhere.
Right.
And then they send most of that money back home. And 10 years later, they move back. And as you say, they live like kings.
Slowly, as the globalization takes effect, that's becoming less and less. Mm-hmm. But, we are all familiar with the jokes, the immigrants. The guy gets off. The guy had a brother that lived in the States, and he told him, the money over here flows on the street, So he sells all his goats, and he gets off Ellis Island with 2 suitcases on hand and sees a $20 bill on the street, puts down the suitcase and reaches to get it. Heck, I'm not going to start working from my first day.
So, Ted, now that you have written 3 books and, you have your kids and your grandkids kind of entrenched in the Mobile culture, and you're not going anywhere, what are your plans for the future at this point? You're
not going back to Greece, are you?
No.
We don't want to lose you.
I still have a house over there, and I go back once a year, and I spend about a month there. I still have a brother and a sister that live there. So I do. But what are my plans for the future? I'm 81 years. My plans are to become 82.
Yeah, nothing wrong with short-term goals. They're just as important as the long one.
I'm still working on. I'm working on another book. It's memoirs, and it's on the 101 draft now. But I'm working on it.
How do you find things in Greece now? Politically and monetarily, economically?
They're okay.
They had some tough times there.
Right.
Yes.
And they had a real refugee problem when we were there.
They still do, yes. With Greece being so close to Turkey, the refugees, short distance, they can see the shore from there. So that tempts a lot of people to try to make it. So they do have, and they try, since Greece is in the EU, once they get in there and they can travel anywhere in Greece. So they do have a large, but economically they're pretty stable now. They're okay.
Well, that's good, since you said you have a sister and a brother still living over there, and they've never had any desire necessarily to come over here to move, even during the heights of all of that craziness?
No, not really. I'm the only one who kind of stayed. No, they have come for a visit.
Right.
And my mother has come a couple of times over here and all that. They enjoyed it. She enjoyed it. But...
what did your mother think of all of this when she experienced the Southern culture and all of that here?
It was, she was amazed at the size of the country for openers. One time we visited some of my wife's relatives in Greenville, North Carolina, and then we were driving back to Mobile that day. And after many hours of drive, my mother said, "Hey, son, are we still in America?" So she liked it, but she, on another side, she was a little bit. For instance, I think that's what was kind of typical. On that visit, we visited Cherokee, North Carolina.
Okay.
And at the entrance of the town, next to the souvenir shops and all that, they had a big teepee with a guy in a typical big chief regalia sitting in the front. And for $1, you could take a picture next to the chief. Next to him was the chief's niece, also dressed like a squaw. And for $5, you could take a picture of both of you with her Kodak, a Polaroid camera at the time. Now, when we were flying over with my mother on the airplane, next to us was sitting a couple from India. And they were coming to America. They had some relatives in the diplomatic corps and all that. And we spoke to each other, and my mother was smiling at them. And I told her they were from India. He said, I used to see them in the news, and now I'm sitting next to him. So she was impressed. Then when we got to Cherokee, and I tried to coax her to sit next to the chief to take a picture of it, which eventually she did. And what kind of dress? What? I said, it's an Indian. But that's not like the kind we saw on the aeroplane. So I told her that Columbus was trying to find a way to India. And when he hit land, he thought he was in India. That's why he named the people India. If that cursed man, if he didn't know where he was going, why didn't he stay put? He could have saved the world of mothers a lot of heartache.
Well, you know those Spanish guys, and Italians.
So, yes, she enjoyed it and all that, and she liked it, but kind of disappointed it was so far away.
With your experience living for so long in Mobile and in Alabama, and then also your origination coming from Greece, what are the commonalities that you see after you kind of peel away all of the surface differences?
My opinion about that, I think there is somebody says something that in that book, is that from my travels all over the world, people are all the same. They have the same goals, the same aspirations. It is certain individuals that create a lot of anxiety and so forth. But basically, the human beings, if left alone, would get along fine. And they are the same. They have the same goals, the same aspirations.
Well, that's kind of what I suspected, but it's nice to hear it from you after all of these years in two different places to say that.
Yeah, since I migrated all the way from St. Clair County to Shelby County, I don't have a lot of experience there.
You can't speak to that difference quite as much, I guess.
Now, how deep are you into this book of memoirs?
It's, like I said, I keep on going over and over. It's about 100,000 words now. And,
wow.
Well, I think I'm gonna make it 3 books. One from young age until I went to sea, and perhaps another book, the sailing years, and another that the years that I got married.
Because I can see that giving a lot of insight into a young man who wants to find adventure. And you found plenty of adventure along the way, and obviously a lot of success. Now, do you still run the company? Are you still involved?
Sort of.
I don't see retirement in your future there.
I don't go to the office as often as I go, but once a week.
Just to collect the check.
I have a pretty capable manager and some capable staff that runs. And I think we have been in business long enough. Hopefully we run out of mistakes.
So I have a suggestion for your memoir title.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just totally winging it. Can you call it Alabama Odyssey and Iliad? Since you're going to do it three books, you might make it an Odyssey and Iliad for Alabama.
Yes, it's got the possibility.
Okay, you're just being nice.
Well, Ted, Pitsios has done 3 books already, and the very latest, I'm not sure which camera will show this best, is by the time you see this podcast, is available, and I assume wherever books are sold?
Yes, it's distributed by Ingram, and it's available wherever books are sold.
Should I, if I want to read that, should I read the book leading up to it to pick up, or will it stand on its own?
This is written to stand on its own.
Okay.
On the book before this is about the young man who is who works at a restaurant, and part of the clients there are retired Americans who, like I said before, they tend to embellish their prosperity over there and what they did. So when a critical situation arises where he has to leave, he deems it would be a smart move if he goes on a ship, and if he jumps ship in America. And so eventually he does jump ship in America, and then this picks up from where he got there.
All right. Sounds exciting.
It is, and I love the tagline, a book about an illegal immigrant and lots of legal ones. Although from what I've read, there's some pretty illegal stuff goes on in there.
This is taking place in the mid-'60s, a few years after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Most of the book takes place in Little Havana, in Calle Ocho in South Miami, and the other one in Fort Lauderdale, in Florida. It's back during the era where we still have black telephones plugged to the wall. And
it plugs into the wall?
We still have to get off the couch to change the channel.
That was my job.
That was our exercise.
And the only shocking thing appeared on shows was the gyrations of Elvis Presley's legs. So it was different.
Well, and the first 2 books, are both those set in Mobile? Or did they? Well, I know one of them is actually set in Greece.
The first set in Mobile. The second is set afloat on the ship and in Miami, and then this is set in Miami.
The one on Mobile has gotten a lot of praise from a lot of different people because it does describe that Greek influence, and we think of Mobile that flies how many flags that have owned that territory there?
Yes.
Very eclectic, and one of the first settlements in America, too, by the way. And
a lot of history.
I obviously does a good job of describing what it's like there in that area. And the book is called Walking in the Light. The author is Theodore Pitsios. You got to put the whole name, of course. And the Mobile Press Register, who've been very kind to me through the years, was extremely kind to you too, Ted. It says, a zesty novel that paints a full canvas of the life of the port of Mobile and Mobile's well-known Greek community. Entertaining, spicy, sardonic, skeptical, nostalgic, full of life, and as realistic as only the Mediterranean worldview can be. Sounds like the menu at my favorite Greek restaurant.
Right, yeah. Sounds like a really good dish.
Very nice.
Yeah, in the form of a book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Good luck with the writing. Good luck with the business. And good luck reaching 82.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here also. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be anywhere, right? Ted Pitsios, author, businessman, immigrant, and a lot more. Thank you for joining us for This Alabama Life. If you're trying to tell somebody where to find us, probably the easiest place is 1819news.com. 1819 News, the sponsor of this fine podcast. And if you go there and click on the podcast link, you'll also see several other podcasts that might be of interest to you, including something you do every day.
Right. The Daily Detail is there if you want to get caught up on some Alabama news as well as national news.
And I'll say this as if she's not sitting here next to us, but you do a fantastic job of condensing all that information into a good, solid, unbiased look at what's happening in the world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Sometimes I'm pulling my hair out trying to sort it all down, but hopefully it doesn't reflect in my news.
It hasn't so far that I've caught you. 1819news.com. And of course, we're on Facebook page there. There's a YouTube channel for This Alabama Life. Tell your friends about us. We'd love to hear from you. If you have guest suggestions, be sure to just drop us an email at the link that you'll find in all those places.
Absolutely. We were able to have Ted because of someone suggesting it. And
exactly.
we really encourage you to do that.
We'll see you next time on This Alabama Life.